finishing up our series in Matthew and Mark, and we're actually in the last two chapters of Matthew and Mark. So we're in Matthew 27 through 28 and Mark 15 through 16. Now, I titled this Proof. Hopefully I can unfold that for you. We'll see how it goes. So I'm only going to use Matthew tonight. If you really want to know why, you can ask me later after youth. But Matthew is where we're going to stay focused in. And I'm also only going to be going through chapter 28. Because 27 you guys have probably heard a million times. And I figured why go over it, and you'll be hearing it soon again. Anyways, there is a couple of things I want to talk about that were surprising to me. And I realized that one is actually true. Because I looked over and Dan was like, all right, that's all right. Dan can do that because he'll crush my spine if I say it.
I'll protect you.
With his hands.
Protect you, John.
Yeah, right. But I guess Dan never mind. All right. So there's two things I wanted to cover in chapter 27 that I thought were kind of weird. And then we'll get moving here. We'll start praying. So the first thing was in Matthew 27, 3 through 7. Now, we just got done talking about Judas kind of gave up Jesus, right? Gave him up with a kiss. So I was super excited to see him. Was acting like he was his homeboy still, and then he gets him thrown into jail, and the guys come and take him, right? So this picks up right where that kind of left off. And yeah, let me just share this with you. It has nothing to do with the lesson. It just was really interesting to me, so I really wanted to share it with you guys. Sorry. And I can do that because I'm in charge. All right, so Judas hangs himself. Then when Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he changed his mind and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. They said, what is that to us? See to it yourself. So basically, he comes back, he feels super guilty about giving up Jesus, tries to give the money back to these priests, and they're like, we ain't touching that, that's not on us, that's on you. And throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed, and he went and hanged himself. But the chief priest, taking the pieces of silver, said, this is the part that made me think about a bunch of stuff here. Taking the pieces of silver, said, it is not lawful to put them into the treasury, since it is blood money. So it is not lawful to put it into the treasury, since it is blood money. If you remember that. So they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field as a burial place for strangers. So these priests knew what they had done was wrong. Like, they gave money to Judas to give up Jesus, and they knew it was so wrong they wouldn't even take the money back. They were like, no, we don't want that money. Like, we know it's blood money. That's how messed up this whole thing is. Like, we're going to learn more about this. This is coming up really, really soon in church. But it just blows my mind with how upset and how mad and how much they hated Jesus that they made things up about him. And then, knowing that they did, they wouldn't even take that money back. They didn't want anything to do with it. Instead, they bought a plot of land to bury strangers in. Crazy. Now, second thing, sorry. Again, has nothing to do with the lesson. I just want to share it. So, you're welcome. Now, this is probably more well known, but it also ties in with the same thing. So, Pilate delivers Jesus to be crucified. So, Pontius Pilate is what we're talking about. So, when Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourself. So, Jesus in front of Pilate, right? There's a bunch of people, they all want Jesus crucified, and it's not even a lot of them. Some of them are kind of ranting and raving, and the rest of the group kind of starts to jump in. And remember, just a few days before this, Jesus was the man. He went from hero to zero, we talked about, right? They were putting down palm leaves. They didn't want nothing to touch the ground for Jesus because they were so happy that he was there. And now they're yelling to have him crucified. So he offers up a gentleman by the name of Barabbas. Barabbas? How do you say that? Barabbas. And so Pilate doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want anything to do with killing Jesus. He doesn't want any part of it. So he's like, yeah, I washed my hands of this. Right? And all the people answered this. His blood be on us and on our children. Then he released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, delivered him to be crucified. So you got Barabbas, who was like this murderer and was in prison for a real reason. So then Pilate says, oh, you know what I'm going to do? This is what I'm going to do. Like, I don't want to kill Jesus because I know something's going on. His wife even knows something's going on. Like, there's something about Jesus. Now, all this has to happen. I get that. But I'm kind of just setting up these other crappy situations. So he doesn't want to kill him. He doesn't want to be in charge of killing him. So instead, what he does is he brings out this guy that's far worse. Well, not even far worse. He's just a horrible person. And he brings this person out to have him killed. He says, okay, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up this dude that's a murderer, does all these shady, crazy things. They'll want to kill him. They're not going to want to set him free before they set Jesus. And instead, they're so hate-filled that they still choose Jesus. A guy that murders people, so he gets to go back on the street and kill more people. Or Jesus, who was healing people, bringing them back from the dead. Like, it's just insane to me. And as I'm reading through these chapters, that's the thing that was popping out in my head, like, oh my gosh. Now, I know you guys have heard this before, and I know that you probably have, you know what, actually, shameless plug. You'll see a lot of this on our Good Friday walkthrough. So, on April 19th, I think at 12 o'clock and at 5 o'clock, so there you go. We have a walk through the church, and it kind of walks through Jesus' time from Good Friday until his crucifixion. So that would be kind of cool to see you guys were reading through this. So you already know all this stuff. I get it. I don't want to cover too much of it. So that was it. That was my 2 rants. All right, take it however you want. Leave it. I just thought that was really interesting. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for allowing us to gather. Father, I ask that you take over today. I've been reading through these chapters, through these verses, and I've heard them, I'm sure, hundreds of times. I'm sure that the youth here have done the same. And maybe this is going to be a reminder of the sacrifice that you've given us, and I love that, and I'm excited about that. And so I just pray as we talk through this, Lord, that there's maybe new insight, maybe there's something that will really penetrate our hearts to maybe go from lukewarm to on fire for Jesus, because your word talks about that. We know what to do with lukewarm believers. Father, we are super grateful for you, and we love you very much. And these things can kind of, I guess, a lot of times when we talk about these things over and over and over, they can become white noise, and even with our prayers, it becomes white noise. We don't pay attention to what we're talking about, or that we're even talking to you, and we may even just, I don't know, not even mean it half the time. So Lord, I pray that you take over tonight. Let my words be yours. Use me however you see fit. I pray that you will open our hearts, minds, and eyes to what you want us to hear and grow from. We love you, Father, very much, and we are truly grateful to you. We love you, and we say these things in your name. Amen. All right, so our main scripture today is going to be Matthew 28, 1 through 10, and I will read that for you. Is the heater on? I wasn't even running, and I'm hot. Will you throw the AC on for me? I'm on fire for Jesus right now. Amen. Sweating for the Lord. All right, so we're going to be talking about the resurrection, all right? So Matthew 28, 1 through 10. Now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. So Jesus now died. They've taken his body and put him in the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake. For an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes white as snow. And for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not there. He is not here, for he is risen." And he said, "Come see the place where he lay." Then go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead. And behold, he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him. So I have told you. So they departed quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, and ran to tell his disciples. And behold, Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." And they came up and took hold of his feet and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me." So proof. I got 4 points for you tonight that I think are just what I usually kind of use as my proof meter. Something that I feel like I can speak to. And so proof of Jesus' resurrection. So the first one is Christ's resurrection is considered a historical fact. I've got scripture for that. Number 2 is eyewitnesses testify that people had seen Christ after he had died and come back. I've got scripture for that. The third one is the change in his followers proves he rose from the dead. So the people that were following him, the change of the way they acted to how they were acting now, or in like Acts, in the next chapters or the next books of the Bible, prove that he rose from the dead. And I have examples of that, which is rooted in Scripture. It's just a lot of Scripture, so I don't read it. And then lastly, you guys, the fact that you believe now. And I've got an example for that. So, number 1, Christ's resurrection is considered as historical fact. So I'm going to go to Matthew 28, 11 through 15. And this is basically after the first scripture that we started with. This is right after that, the report of the guard. So while they were going, behold, some of the guards went to the city and told the chief priests all that had taken place. And when they had assembled with the elders and taken counsel, they gave a sufficient sum of money to the soldiers and said, "Tell people his disciples came by night and stole him away while you were sleeping. And if this comes to the governor's ears, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." So they took the money and did as they were directed, and the story has been spread among the Jews to this day. So this is kind of like one of our first conspiracy theories. I'm not opposed to conspiracy theories. I've definitely gone down a couple of rabbit trails. My nephew got me on a couple. Anyways, so I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of what people have said. Now, the first one is right there in that scripture, that his disciples took them. So now, here's the thing. Some of the thoughts were that the disciples came in, moved this big stone, grabbed Jesus, and took him out of the tomb. Now, that doesn't explain a lot of things, right? One, there's this huge boulder in front of the door. Like, it's not like you can just, it's like a door that you can just kind of put some WD-40 on and like open the door really quietly and then creep on in and then grab Jesus without the guards noticing. Like, no, there's there's a huge rock. You got guards. Now, they knew Jesus had talked about himself coming back. So they knew that something was going to happen. They were trying to make sure nothing did happen. That's why they put people on guard. There was no time that Jesus' body was by itself, because they were so worried that what he said was going to happen. They wanted to make sure it didn't happen, and yet it still did. Right? So now you've got this idea of, the disciples came, and maybe they, roughed up the soldiers a little bit, and then they got in there, moved this big old boulder, grabbed him, took him out. And it's just not possible. Even the soldiers said, no, we just freaked out. This earthquake happened, this angel appeared, and they fainted. They were like, oh, and that was it. Like, that's how freaked out they were. So all these things happen. Now, you can't, so that's one of the conspiracy theories, okay? The other one that I heard before, and I was like, this is insane. I don't remember where I heard it, but they said that Jesus wasn't quite dead. They said that he almost was dead. He was right about death. They took him off the cross, and what he did is he was able to move the rock in his healthiness. Like, that he had 3 days to heal after being speared in the side, hanging. Like, a crucifixion is one of the worst deaths imaginable. You actually suffocate alive because your weight hangs forward, your hands are up, your feet are crossed. You can't, and you just sit there and you drown. And remember, he was scourged, which means he was hit with these whips that had pieces of glass and sharp metal, and they just sheared his back. Pieces just falling off of his back, pieces of skin falling off. And then they stab him to make sure that he's dead, and everything, and then all that crazy stuff happens. The veil tears, the ground shake, all these crazy things. And then they try to say, well, he just probably wasn't dead, and so he was able to. And it's, again, we go back to the rock. This thing's ginormous. It's not like it's a pebble or a stone. Like, it's huge. It's like huge. And so like Jesus came out and was like, I got this. Like, not the case. And then I also heard something about kind of a bait and switch, like the disciples got to the body, or somebody got to the body before he was taken to the tomb. And the other thing, again, with that, like I said before, there was nobody that left. Actually, a gentleman named Joseph had to come and ask for Jesus' body. And he was able to prepare it because he had a tomb for him. But the whole time he's got soldiers, he's got, because again, these priests and everything don't want anything of what Jesus said to come true. So there's just no way. So those are my conspiracy that I was like, I can't believe. Yeah.
The soldiers would have been drastically punished if they ever fell asleep on duty.
Right.
At least really frequently.
What's that? They had a team of people like that was, that took care of it. And the other thing is too, you move a big rock like that, it's not like it's quiet. It's not like you can just like, no, it's like it's crumbling, loud, banging against stuff. I mean, it's not an easy guess.
Did the soldiers make that noise when they painted?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. All right, so that's the first one. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, eyewitnesses testified that they had seen Christ. So Luke 24:33-36. And they rose that same, actually I got a few scriptures for this one. And they rose the same hour and returned to Jerusalem. And they found the 11 and those who were with them gathered together, saying, "The Lord is risen indeed and has appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road and how he was known. Sorry, I had lasagna.
It was good.
It was good, but now I'm a little burdened. Then they told what had happened on the road and how he was known to them in the breaking of the bread. As they were talking about these things, so they're talking about Jesus has shown himself to them. He stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." And then they freak out again. We'll go to the next one. John 20:19-20. On the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being locked where the disciples were for the fear of the Jews. Remember that, okay? The doors being locked is going to help the third one. Where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." When he had said this, he showed them his hands and his side. You've seen this picture a million times. I feel like there's a picture where he has his hands out and they're like, let me make sure I'm sure it's not.
Sorry, what?
Yeah.
You made that noise again.
No. So they're like, feeling his wounds. They're touching him. Like in that first scripture, Mary grabbed his feet, right? So he's there, tangible. When he said this, he said, "Peace be with you." When he had said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples were glad when they saw the Lord. Acts 1:3. He presented himself alive to them after his suffering by many proofs, appearing to them during 40 days of speaking about the kingdom of God. So Jesus comes back after he's been resurrected, and he goes for 40 days and he preaches and he teaches. And over 500 people see him, talking, and they interact with them. There's this huge a group of people. And so there's scoffers. They're like, well, these people were hallucinating. They were, drunk. So you just can't have 500 people hallucinate the same thing. It's just not possible.
It's true.
You don't get 500 drunk people to have the same encounter. You can't get one drunk person to figure out the same encounter with themselves. The next morning they're like, "Pretty sure I was not driving, but I'm on the wheel and I'm stuck in a tree." So over 500 people saw Jesus during this time. So hallucination is out the door. Number 3, the change in his followers proves he arose from the dead. Now here's my example. We're just reading the scripture, I promise. So you guys remember the Garden of Gethsemane, right? There was it was Jesus. It was three others of his disciples. They were hanging out, falling asleep, whatever. And then there was this big breakout. And they found Jesus, and they went to take Jesus, and Peter got crazy with the sword, trying to cut people, cut off an ear. Come on, Peter, do better. Slicing ears. All right, so all this stuff happens. And they all take off. They all scatter. Once Jesus gets taken, they all scatter. You can't find a disciple anywhere. Same when Peter denies him, right? They take Jesus to go be tried, and while they're doing that, there's like one disciple anywhere near, and it's Peter, and he's just close enough to deny him 3 times. So you've got disciples that just scattered. They took off. They were scared. So they're running scared. They're hiding. There was that one too, I think in Mark, that ended up taking off running naked. Remember I told you I was going to share that part?
Yeah.
And did anyways, because I don't know, I like sharing that kind of stuff, I guess. He got snatched up by his clothes. They took his clothes off, and he still took off. I mean, that's how scared these people were. Is they were afraid of what the Jews were going to do if they were rolling with Jesus, right? So you got all these people that are heck scared, that are hiding, that are taking off naked. And as soon as Jesus comes back and presents himself, the disciples' fear left them. I mean, there was proof. What Jesus had said for all these times that they constantly were like, nah, okay, Lord, God, you're not going to get killed, right? You can't leave us, or all these things that they're saying. He ends up doing what he said he was going to do. And so they, for that the few days, they were scared and all, whatever, hiding. And then all of a sudden he comes back, he shows himself to them, and they're on fire. They're on fire for Jesus. They're preaching about him, they're teaching about him, people are getting killed for him, they're starting the church. I mean, there's so many things that happen that just doesn't happen if you hallucinated something. You don't carry forth a church for centuries. What centuries? 100? Whatever. However you take time. I'm not sure. For 7 hours. You don't carry the church on off of hallucinations. It just doesn't happen. So these guys get spooked. Jesus comes back and they see that what he said was true, which is again an encouragement to us guys, I'm telling you, because I know sometimes I'm not always like, oh, I'm on fire for Jesus. There's times where it's become a lot less frequent. Like if there's any encouragement to you guys, I feel like maybe the older I got, the more comfortable I am in my growth in Jesus and understanding of what the Word says. I am a little bit more courageous when it comes to conversations. I don't shy away if someone talks about Jesus or if someone asks me questions about my faith. I don't have any issues anymore. I'm like, yeah, well, this is where I'm at. This is who I love. This is why I do the things I do. Like, I don't have an issue with that anymore. So if that's an encouragement at all to you guys, because I know it's probably really hard for you guys at school right now. I know at school I didn't even believe in anything except for what I could do to get myself in trouble, basically, without any details. So I didn't have a belief, and I know that right now, in the way things are going and the way people are talking, I know it's hard for you guys to do that. So if I can be encouragement to you, I promise you things get easier. But the more you learn, the more you know, the more comfortable you are to be able to talk about that kind of stuff, which will kick us into the next one. Number 4, the fact that you guys believe. This is proof that the resurrection is true. The truth of Christ has been passed down from generation to generation to generation. But let's go a step further. You still have to believe. You still have to know that Jesus died for you. You can be like, oh yeah, I heard that. Yeah, I kind of believe it. Hear me say this. If you're here because of your friend, I'm happy you're here. I am. I'm glad you're here. But that's not getting you into the kingdom. Okay? Your friend, you can't hide behind your friend into heaven. I'm right behind a little slow. It doesn't work like that. So if you're here for your friend, that's fine. That's cool. I'm glad you're here. And I'm hoping that you continue to come. And I hope that you get to hear the gospel a little more, because it's gonna start weighing on your heart. If you're coming here because your parents sent you here, I'm glad you're here. I am. I hope you keep coming. But I'll tell you this. Your parents don't get a +1 in heaven. They don't get to be like, oh yeah, I don't get to say, yo, what's up, Jesus? How you doing, man? Good to see you, bro. Glad I made it. I knew I would, but I wasn't sure because I did a couple things shady, but you still got me. You still died for me. I'm going to bring Jordan in with me. Is that cool? No. Oh, she's got a, all right. I can't bring in Jordan. I can't bring in Alicia. I can't bring nobody into the kingdom. It's got to be you. You've got to have that belief. It's got to be your heart. You've got to accept him as your Lord and Savior. We don't give plus ones. So what's that mean? A couple of things. You don't get to hang out by the party and kind of be like, oh yeah, that looks like that's cool. I'm gonna go jump in. Yeah. All right, I'm ready. What's up, Lord? How you doing? I kind of believed in you a little bit. You know, I went to youth group and that was cool. And we were, I was really good in some areas, and, but I wasn't sure about you. And actually, I didn't really believe it. I just was having a good time hanging out. But I'm ready to come in now. So go ahead and hit that button. Open the gate for me. Yeah, exactly. It ain't gonna open. All right, it ain't gonna open. You don't get to look at the party and say, okay, yeah, I'll go. Yeah, that's cool. I'm gonna check that out. It doesn't work like that. You have to proclaim his name to get a ticket to that party. You have to. It has to be your faith. Now, hear me saying this. This is my disclaimer. We'll shut it right here. There is times where it's hard for me to honor him or believe in him or have complete faith in him. Like, I'm not telling you you're going to just have it on lock every single time. You're not. Things are going to happen. Things are going to pop up. There's going to be times where you question. It's actually good if you do, because then you can start doing the research. But here's the thing. You have to do the research. You have to do the research. You have to be looking into it. You have to be asking questions. If you're not a reader, ask questions. Find people that love Jesus, that have a heart for Jesus, and start asking them questions. Start figuring out, well, why? A great start would be your leaders. Why do you serve at youth? What is that? Why are you here? You could be doing something else on a Tuesday night, I'm pretty sure. Your leaders are here to pour into you. It's because they have a heart for Jesus. It's because they've received him. They accept him. They know that he is here for them. And because of that love that they feel from him, they want to give that same love back to you. Because we want to mirror what Jesus did for us. That's why we're here. I mean, they're not getting paid. I get paid. You're not part of the money. But I don't have to be here. I could be doing something else for maybe more money. I don't know. I'm not that smart, so I take that back. I'm pretty smart, but I'm smart in different ways, usually illegal ways. So this is probably my speed right here. But they don't have to be here. There's something that God did in their hearts, that Jesus has done in their hearts, that makes them want to be here. Ask them why. They're going to tell you their favorite scripture. They're going to tell you, read this book. Or, this is one of the scriptures that did it for me. Or, this is would be my answer to you. Because I'll tell you right now, I am not a reader. I've been struggling with this for the last 2 months. I've had the hardest time prepping for lessons because reading and studying is not my favorite thing. I love being up here. I love talking about Jesus to you guys, but I have to make myself read. I have to make myself study because I don't want to come up here and lie to you guys or not be truthful. I got a whole laundry list of things that I need to make sure I'm covering here. So I tell you this: the reason I follow Christ is because of how people showed Christ to me in their lives. Because I've seen Christ in other people and how they shared that with me. How moms took me in when I was a teenager and didn't have a place to live. How people took care of bills for me because they knew I was struggling and they could do that. Hanging out with dudes that would tell me they love me. Like, just because. Not because they're my family, not because they had to. They just love me because they love me. Christ loved them, so they love me in return. These are all things that you see that happen. And we don't always get a chance to articulate it or ask the right questions. But I'm telling you guys right now, it needs to be your faith. And you've got people in your lives right here in this room that you can ask those questions about. All right, let's start around. You have to proclaim his name to get a ticket to the party. It has to be your faith. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for all that you do. I don't know how to express sometimes the seriousness of what it means to follow you. I know sometimes I make it a little easy maybe. And it's not always. But doggone, it's worth it. If there's anything I can say, Lord, if there's anything that would change hearts to receive you, to know you, to accept you, Lord, give me those words, because I'd love to make that click for people. You know what? You never let me down. You never have. I know you never will. It doesn't mean that things are always going to work out, and I get that. And it took me a while to learn that. So those would be the words, Lord, that I know that you'll never let me down. It may not be the way I like it. It may not be the way I planned it, or the way I want it to go, but you're always in it. You always show me why it happened. And that in itself is proof to me, Father, that you are real. I pray, Lord, that if there's anybody in this room that is not sure, or even that is feeling that tug on their heart, Lord, I pray that they will just ask you to take over their lives. We don't, yeah. I love reading your Gospels. I love being reminded of the sacrifice you made for not just me, but everyone in this room. And we know it's going to fall on deaf ears, Lord, but I just pray in this room there's not one deaf ear. I pray that everybody in this room is hearing what's happening. It has to be our faith. It can't be our parents. It can't be our friends. It can't be our leaders. It's got to be our own. We love you, Lord. So grateful for you. I pray that you are in our groups tonight, Lord. Give us courage and strength. Give us great conversation as you normally do. We love you, Lord. In your son's name. Amen. All right, here's what we're going to do. Everybody knows where their groups usually meet. Yeah?